Hey Heather. So anytime I realize that somebody is using a gardening metaphor, like as soon as like there's a shovel introduced or like dirt or flowers or whatever, I'm like I'm already failing because I'm not a gardener at all. I get a lot of anxiety around gardening, I think because I can't control it at all and it just requires so much sensory, so much like getting out there and checking and doing and reading about where the plants need, what kind of light they need and how much food they need. And like everybody needs something different. And I'm just like, it's like just too hard for me. And what's kind of funny about the metaphors, because there's so many, is that when I see these, um, and or I hear them, and then I think of like you were saying, like if there's this space in your life that hasn't been tended to, then all of a sudden you can go back in your backyard and be like, oh my gosh, there's like this giant weed with a huge taproot here. I wasn't even paying attention. And yes, like is that applicable to my life in other like non-sensory ways? For sure. But in some ways I think I need the reverse of a gardening metaphor. Like I need to see like, hey Monica, if you don't look into this aspect of your life, or if you don't pay attention to this um, you know non-sensory thing going on, then that is very much like the sensory world. So how like if you don't pay attention to this or that in your life, that's the same thing happens if you like don't go out and water your flowers. And I'm like, oh, like now I get it. Now I get it. Because the sensory stuff is, I mean, I get it, but it's so much harder for me to go out and water the flowers and remember to do it. And especially like we have these flowers on the side of our house. It's like where like a flower bed has been since we moved in. And they're perennials, so they keep coming. God bless them. But not because of anything that I do, because I go over there and I'm like, oh yeah, dahlias. I always forget that there's dahlias here. Or no, they're not even dahlias, they're daffodils. Daffodils. Yellow daffodils. They show up. I think some years I've completely missed them because they're on the side of the house and like I don't even go over there and I'm like, I just don't care. But then I see them and I'm like, oh, they're lovely and I like flowers. I really do. I like them in a vase where I can control them, I think. I don't know. But they're beautiful. It's just that the actual tending to them is a lot harder. I would so much rather deal with people, which I know there's so much metaphor there, right? Like flowers growing and people growing, and what flowers, they grow at different paces, and there's just like so many metaphors for beauty and for humanity and for even like, yeah, of course, growth and even communication and things like that. I would way rather deal with people because as far as I'm concerned, like it's like we're like just totally different. We've got like sensory and we've got human interaction and relationships. So yeah, I just thought it was so funny that you use a gardening metaphor because I'm like, of course, I would love to be really good at this. I would love to be able to like glean so much from this metaphor, but all I can walk away with after hearing them is like, I just feel like a failure. Anyway, thanks for sharing, and I'll talk to you next week.